but just moved. I'm feeling pretty darn sore right now everywhere in my bodies. How you feeling, man? How you doing?
Well, you know what, man? I gotta be honest. I'm excited to be here with you right now, my brother Michael, recording our podcast, Photography Brothers. But I'm a bit devastated today, man. I'm a bit devastated.
What?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, you know, like we've been talking a lot lately about just the struggle of a podcaster, and how especially since the pandemic and stuff like that the whole podcast space is getting really saturated, like we're kind of worried about that, all these different famous people, comedians and stuff like that, starting to get into the podcasting game, and some of them I like a lot, man, and I just kind of feel like I wish they would stick to their privileged life of making movies and having tons of money, and just kind of let this be for us, man. So you got like Mark Maron. I mean, he's been in it for a while, and we're gonna grandfather him in, but guys like Dak Shepard, like, come on, buddy, you've got millions of dollars, you're married to Kristen Bell, you've got company, you're a writer, producer, director, people throw money at you to make movies and stuff like that. Like, I just wish they'd leave the podcast space to us. And then I find out about the Smartless podcast. I'm in an Uber, right? And the guy's listening to Smartless. That's got Jason Bateman on there, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes. I have no idea who that is. You know who that is?
That sounds really familiar, but I have no idea, like, off the top of my head.
If you know who Sean Hayes is, let us know down in the comments. But you know what I mean, man? Like, Jason Bateman, come on. You're an Ozark. You're a big celebrity. And so I'm kind of thinking that, right? And then I get on my phone this morning, bro. I open up, my safe place, my happy place, the Spotify app, where I go in there and I listen to my podcasts from my friends and things like that. My girlfriend's got a podcast, other people got a podcast. And you know what I see on there, man?
What?
Bruce Springsteen.
Get out!
Okay, Bruce Springsteen, but as if that wasn't enough, has teamed up with former President Barack Obama for their new podcast, all about how they love America.
Oh, man.
And how are the bros going to compete with that? But you know what, Michael?
What?
We still have our edge, buddy. We still have our edge.
Okay.
Because on this podcast, we've got the sickest intros. And this week, Mr. Bruce Springsteen got an intro for your ass. Sydney, cut that intro music. You ready, Michael?
Oh, I'm born. Let's go.
Because we're about to get into the real intro here. We are the Photo Bros. We are the Photo Bros. We are the Photo Bros. And we're gonna be taking good photos now. Are the Photo Bros. We are the Photo Bros now. We are the Photo Bros. And Michael's gone to get his lighter now.
How'd you know?
Are the Photo Bros. We are the Photo Bros now. We are the Photo Bros. And we're gonna take some good photos now. Not great. Maybe not the best. Anyways, that was pretty good. Not bad. I think it at least got the energy up for everybody here. I felt like we were gonna kind of slam Bruce Springsteen. I was gonna like completely nail it, and then I kind of screwed it up a bit. But
that was unbelievably inspiring, and it's what I needed to get me through the week.
I I only learned it today, so hope that everybody will forgive me my couple of mistakes there. But regardless, I think we've got a great episode of the Photography Brothers for all of you, even though that intro wasn't quite the greatest. I am, of course, your brother. Whatever, dude. It was okay. It was okay. I'll keep working on it. Next week, we're going to really bring the fire, But I'm your brother, Jared Poirier, and I'm a photographer. I am a videographer. I am a podcaster. I am a comic book nerd. I play the guitar, and I am co-host of a great podcast with my good friend, Michael Costa.
How you guys doing? Like you said, that was my name that I was given at my birth and stuff. I'm also a photographer and content creator. Sure, the links are down below, unless there's some corruption happening here. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But I'm pretty sure the good guy over here will make sure that gets linked. Just very excited for today's podcast, man. Let's get this thing going. I'm stoked.
Of course, we've got a great episode here for everybody today. Not one that's going to disappoint. And you know what? You might want to, if you're going to listen to this podcast right now, this might be a little bit hard if you're like at home or at work. First of all, if you're listening to this podcast at work, good for you. That's awesome. You know, you're probably one of those people like me. When I used to have like a normal day job and stuff like that, I could never like pay attention to what I was doing, and I always needed like some type of distraction, or I had to like make weird voices on the phone and just try to entertain myself and stuff like that. So if you're listening to the podcast at work, I respect you. But if you're at home, I still respect you. But go ahead, get in your closet, get out your black clothes. If you've got some black makeup, like if maybe you've got like maybe you're a girl, so you've got some black makeup. Maybe your girlfriend's got some black makeup. What I'm saying is, it's time to go full goth today, because today we are talking about death photography. Memento Mori photography, Michael Costa. So it's time to get goth. It's time to get spooky. We're getting ghosty, and we're talking about photos of the dead today. Michael, you ever take a photo of a dead person?
I haven't, but I have close friends and even relatives that, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit later, where there are similar parallels.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. No spoilers. We'll get into it later. We're going to talk a little bit broadly here about like art related to death and kind of the fascination with death, but we're also going to focus in a little bit on a particular period of time when death photography, Memento Mori photography was really popular, and that is in Victorian England. So that might be the best place to start. Not that art that was fascinated with death and stuff like that really started in Victorian England, but here it is actually probably close to at its height, perhaps, and also very highly related to photography. So we'll be able to talk about some of the technical things and how they took these photos and whatnot. So do you know a lot about the 1800s in England, Michael?
The 1800s in England, not specifically.
No, not really a big focus for you. Me neither, man, really. But after digging in today and learning how many weird dead people photos they were doing, I was kind of into it. So the big thing, why were there so many dead people photos going around? Why was it so popular? Because it really was, like, this was a craze, getting photos of your dead relatives, and especially if it was a child, right, that had died. And that might seem pretty morbid to us, I guess, at this time. But it was pretty normal back then. And the thing was that a lot of people were dying back then, Michael. The coronavirus, as you know, is not the first ever epidemic. I mean, you probably knew that, right?
I did know that.
Could probably name some other ones. Michael Costa's going to tell you
Spanish flu.
guys. Oh, there's a good classic. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good classic, but it is a classic.
It's a classic.
It is a classic. Yeah.
That's it.
Did you want? Oh man, if you want me to keep naming them,
Right,
I mean,
go
I
with
mean,
it, buddy. Let's hear it.
You know, there was the the one that happened before that one.
The Black Plague.
The Black Plague, which killed the most amount of people, wasn't it?
I think so, man.
Yeah.
Here in 1800s England, it seemed like diphtheria, typhus, cholera, smallpox, tuberculosis. All of these things were a big problem, back in the day. These days, you get smallpox or you get your diphtheria, and you just take like a couple Advils and stuff, have a nap, and you're feeling all better, right? But back in the day, you got some diphtheria, and it was over for you. You were done. It was time to pack your bags and head to heaven. But before you got there, people were going to probably take a picture of your dead body. And what do you think was the reason behind this, Michael? Like, why would so many people... and they spent a lot of money on it, man. They spent like tons and tons of money to get these photos done. So what do you think is the deal with that?
Yeah, I think probably just to keep the memory of them alive. That's probably just I guess there.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, keeping the memory of the person alive, especially if it was someone who had like died young or something like that. Mm-hmm. The other big thing was that you probably didn't have any other photos of the person, because it wasn't at all like today, right? Where there's probably a photo of me for like just about every day that I've been alive, especially now, since they took back in the day, okay, when I was growing up, when I was like a teenager or whatever, probably not, but these days with like cell phones and social media, right, it's hard to imagine like that you would go your whole life without a photo ever being taken of you. But photography, when it started, especially in like the early 1800s, it was incredibly expensive. And we don't think about it these days. I can just grab my camera here and take as much photos as I want. And, it's not really a big issue. Bring them home, edit them, put them out on social media. Back then, it wasn't like that. And the main form of photography was like silver plate photography, right? So you'd be like exposing a silver plate with like some chemicals and stuff like that. And that's how you would get your photos. Number one, very expensive. Number two, very time consuming, right? So some of these early cameras, it would be exposures like a minute, right? So imagine having someone come in, like Michael Costa, you've done some photos with models and stuff like that. Imagine your model comes in and for every single photo, sit there for a minute in the same pose, don't move, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, especially in the earliest stages of photography, which is kind of what we're talking about here, there were portraits that would last over 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Like it was outrageous. Yeah. So yeah, for sure. There's actually an interesting element that we can talk to in some of the photos that are in this article that kind of highlight that. But sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into it, man. Oh, don't apologize. It's your podcast too, buddy. There's always place. I'll always lend an ear to Michael Costa's take on the topic. You know that, Michael, don't you?
I do. Thank you, Jared. The brothers are safe.
As Michael was mentioning here, it was difficult to take photos, and it was rare to take photos. Michael Costa, as an informed photographer, he knows all about the history of photography and whatnot. And man, imagine trying to take a picture, especially of a kid, right? And like sit there for a minute. That's why it like just didn't happen, man. Like I remember one of my first gigs as a photographer, I actually worked at the Santa's workshop.
Really?
Oh, totally, man. And the kids were always squirming and stuff, peeing in Santa's lap. And then like this one time, dude, I couldn't even believe it. Like the kid ran up to me, and I was like dressed like an elf, right? Because you had to like play the part and stuff. And he said I was a stupid elf, and then he punched me in the nuts.
No!
It's not a real story. I made that entire thing up.
Oh, oh man.
Anyways, but for you photographers working the Santa Claus workshop beat, we understand your struggles, and that movie Bad Santa really helps me understand a lot about the struggles in the Santa world and adjacent Christmas Santa industries. So, you know, our heart goes out to them. So that silver plate photography I actually wrote down here in my notes. That's called a daguerreotype, Michael. So and another interesting thing here is that in order to make the kids look alive, and Sydney will, I'm gonna send these photos to Sydney with no context. I'm just gonna send her a bunch of weird dead kid photos and be like, yeah, these are for the podcast.
Make sure she opens those before she watches any of the video.
Yeah, just the first thing I send her.
Be like, here's the first batch of content you'll need. Yep. I'm getting the rest of it to you. Yeah.
Anyways, we're gonna roll those here. Sometimes they would even like paint eyelids on the kid, like paint eyes over their eyelids to like make it look like they're alive. When these are showing here, you guys might be like creeped out by them. You might think it's morbid. Some of them I find like really funny. Unfortunately, like I don't know, maybe I'm kind of messed up, but some of them I find kind of hilarious. I don't know what it is. I guess it's like it's kind of that thing where you have to like either laugh or cry, right? So I choose to laugh. The other thing that's really interesting about this is that it's... Oh yeah, I also wanted to mention the Alienist Season 2. The Alienist Season 2 is all about this. How they're like babies that are dying, and there's like getting... paint over their eyes and stuff like that. So I definitely wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to mention that this wasn't just an English thing. So England had, photography technology, and this is one of the first things that they chose to do with it. Great. But other countries who were getting into photography started doing stuff like this as well, and there are some of these Memento Mori photos from Australia and Russia and stuff like that as well. I also forgot to mention that Memento Mori, what it actually means. It means like a reminder of death. I think if you like translate it from Latin, it says it's supposed to be like always remember that you must die or something like that in Latin. So that's kind of what it means. So yeah, man, what's that making you think about? Do you think this is weird? Do you think it's normal? Do you think that British people are totally messed up? Do you kind of relate to what they're doing here?
Yeah, I mean, so I actually did. I wish I retained more information from school. We did cover this in one class. We showed up, and it was definitely a little strange
Costa,
to kind of learn about it.
Famously didn't pay attention in school.
Famously, yeah. Well, this class specifically, I was passing out all the time.
But in this podcast, we're making up for it, buddy.
We're making up for it, yeah. Sorry, Prof. I don't even remember his name. That's really bad. But the I mean, as far as my take on it, like, here's what I'll say. There are cultural norms today even where, others take images of, the family standing next to the casket, sometimes even holding a hand, even to the extent of, kissing their face or something like that. So that is actually, fairly normal for some cultures to do that. Even in the case of, a mother who maybe loses their children during a miscarriage or even early enough, within their life, it's very common for them to want to bathe, dress, and even take photos of their kid. I think a big reason that it's actually, like, especially looking at some of these images, that they look a little, freaky to us, maybe a little bit more extra strange to us, is, the outfits are dated to us. The style of photography is no longer, practiced. The poses are a little uncommon. They're kind of stagnant and stiff.
There's already a creepy aesthetic to old photos, right? It doesn't
exactly right. Yeah. It's appropriate to the time, right? For me personally, I had a slightly different upbringing. I think that it's just how you were kind of raised. For me, going to a funeral, going to a viewing or whatever, I would never think to take out a camera and take a photo. It's like, for me, it's a very like, let's sit here and reflect and like just kind of be there and pray and do that kind of thing.
I think that's yeah, that's still like a cultural thing though, right? Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
there are people who would look at even the act of a funeral as like a weird, morbid thing, right?
It's true, yeah. So I think it really does just, it does just kind of come down to the cultural norms as to how maybe this hits you. But it is, it is actually, a kind of a fairly similar thing. And I think just kind of leaning on some of those things I mentioned earlier around, which is the time, the times, the way they're dressed and in styles and stuff, that I think pairing that with it can make it look obviously a bit stranger. But yeah, I know certainly for me, it's not something I would necessarily feel comfortable doing, or necessarily want images of. Like I wouldn't want to look at photos of my dead kid or my dead family members. For me, it's just, yeah, again, it's that cultural norm thing and what you're used to. But yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. One thing to add, so you mentioned how they would paint eyes on them.
Yeah.
They would actually do that often also, like after the image was taken, and paint it on the image.
Oh, interesting.
As
Kind
well.
of photoshopping it later.
That's the earliest stages of Photoshop.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a brush or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But yeah, man. Yeah.
It's like that is very trippy to think about. Yeah, it's always interesting to like look into the historical photography and stuff like that and see, how they did this, how they pulled it off. Also, in reading this, I learned that like sometimes these photos of like quote unquote like dead kids or whatever get confused with just normal photos of kids from the time, because again, when it takes like a minute to expose, the kid's like squirming around, right? Like much like I experienced in my story, that definitely real true story of when I worked at Santa's workshop, right? That like those kids they're squirming all over the place. So one of the things that they used to do, not at Santa's workshop, but in the 1800s, was actually like take photos of kids that were asleep or like very kind of messed uply, that's not a word, very creepily, or perhaps like, I don't know, maybe cruelly perhaps, like give the babies drugs so that they'd fall asleep so they could take the photos. So yeah, just kind of how people had to deal with things back then is always very, very interesting to get into, man. I also want to approach some other angles of this. This is kind of like this was all done for a reason, right? Like this wasn't even like necessarily artistic photography. Not that they were really trying to say something here. I think they were just trying to like, for the grieving family, give them, some something to remember, right? Something to remember the kid by, kind of be like, kind of honor the life that could have been or something like that. But there's other forms of, let's say, like morbid art, more broadly, that actually do have more of a symbolic meaning, that have more of something to say. And this is kind of broadly called Vanitas art. And I was reading up a little bit on this earlier today, as we forgot to mention, Michael has just moved into his new place. He's got his new studio. So if things don't sound, I'm sure they still sound great. I'm sure it still sounds boss, because Michael is a boss, and I'm sure it's still going to sound good. But Michael's in his new spot, so as he was kind of getting ready, I had a little bit more time to read up here on our topic. So Vanitas art refers to a symbolic work of art showing the transcendence of life, the futility of pleasure, and the certainty of death. So, transience of life, like impermanence of life, I guess. So I think this covers a lot of things. If you look historically, there's all types of creepy art like this, a lot of it in like the Christian tradition. Kind of trying to remind you that you're going to die one day, so you better not be so obsessed with it. I actually built a little bit back here. That's why I don't know if you guys noticed. This is my Vanitas art back here. I've got my money. I've got my reminder of death. I've got PHOTOBROS, which makes it extra artistic. So yeah, kind of reminding people to not be so worldly and stuff like that, right? Not be so obsessed. And always be reminded that you're going to die, which I think is kind of a fun concept, right? Because you don't want to forget to die. you know, like if you, you got to get that when your phone
One day
goes
you
off
wake up,
there.
you're 230 years old, and you're like,
Yeah.
fuck.
I forgot to die. Yeah, I didn't write it down. I didn't write it down in my calendar, you know. So guys, make sure you do that. You go in there. We have tips here on the Photography Brothers, so you always want to be able to remind yourself. So there's a whole bunch of types of vanitas art. From history, there's coins, there's paintings. There, you could even consider like a really nicely done gravestone to be vanitas art, right? It's like there to remind you that you're going to die one day, or kind of remind you of the concept of death, or your loved ones who have died, or something like that. And before any of that, there were death masks, right? So before photography even existed, there was the ability to make like plaster masks of people's face. You ever make a plaster mask of your face, Michael?
No, I don't think so.
No? I've done it at least twice.
Have you?
Yeah, just as kind of like a fun art project.
Are you claustrophobic?
I used to be, but I got over it. I used to be afraid of heights too, and I got over that as well.
I think there's something about covering my face in like that molding material or whatever that just kind of spooks me out.
But you poke air holes in it.
Yeah, I guess.
You and I will do it together one time, man, and we'll create some permanent death masks, and we will join the ranks of famous death mask havers such as Beethoven, Napoleon, Peter the Great of Russia, Stalin, and my main man with the hat, he freed the slaves, Abraham Lincoln. That's right. Ooh. That's right. So take that. I don't know who, but take it.
That one person who's watching that has an opposing argument for some reason,
that doesn't believe that Abraham Lincoln was real
or had a face. Yeah.
One of those Abraham Lincoln conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln never existed, bro. And can you think of some from the modern day, Michael? I mean, we've been kind of judging these historical people, these Victorians in the 1800s, these Christians in the 1500s. You know what I mean? Kind of looking at them, being like, "Wow, you guys are friggin' weird, looking at all those skulls and stuff all the time. Like, you guys are messed up, dude." But I don't know, maybe we're messed up. Like, I'm sure you can think of some stuff now, some modern Memento Mori, right? Yeah,
man. There are a couple actually. So I know we had a discussion before the call. You definitely did a good job of highlighting one of my favorite musicians who unfortunately did pass recently, or fairly recently, at least a couple of years ago, Mac Miller. He released his swimming album. Track on there was called Self-Care, and you may or may not know he had a music video that was released just months before his passing, and it is kind of unsettling because the video largely takes place within a coffin, a wooden, just basic coffin, very claustrophobic. And he's just kind of talking to some of the mental hurdles he has as he's in this thing, and he climbs out of the dirt. And of course, anyways, well done video and all, but what it symbolizes definitely speaks to what we're talking about here. And then of course, just the fact that he dies kind of emphasizes that, his real life passing only emphasizes kind of the messaging of what we're saying right now.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing to note is that in that video, which I think was one of the last, if not the last videos that he released, that he actually carves Memento Mori into the top of the coffin there. So
yeah,
maybe one thing you didn't realize.
I actually did not realize that. So I'm actually unfortunately, this happens a lot with people. I actually got into Mac Miller's music after his passing. So I'm kind of still going through this like crazy absorption of content. But I'm really just taking it all in. But that's really good to know. It's interesting because it just adds to the context of I guess kind of how morbidly accurate that video is, and how sad it is. But the other part I wanted to bring up, the other example I had, and let me know if I'm a little off the mark here, but there are photographs such as the falling man image, which sort of does that as well. Of course, the falling man image, when you go back to 9/11, it was an image of a man who had jumped from the top, and he was falling to his death. Sure, there are aspects to that photo that can be interpreted as appealing to the eye. Of course, the guiding lines. You talk to, how the pose of the body kind of looked almost more like an ascension. It looks, it kind of draws away from the messaging. But ultimately, when you do look at it, it is overcome by this, he is dying. Like there was this severe situation, and he is falling to his death, and that is a very morbid thing in its own. And the photo is very, very controversial. Of course, it did get a release in the paper, but it was not received very well. And so I think, like a lot of these things, sometimes it's not interpreted well or received well. But I think it is good to have art or to recreate or to create or to capture these things and just kind of to act as a reminder of what you should be fortunate for life and such, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of stuff that we've talked about on the show before, about like kind of dissecting art and looking at art as a way to come to terms with how you feel about something, right? As a way to kind of look in the different parts of your brain, and maybe you look at a piece of art the first time and you're like, maybe with that Mac Miller video or tons of other examples of kind of morbid art in our culture, whether that's like metal imagery or The Weeknd just started his own radio station also called Memento Mori, so we're just touching on all of these things, horror movies, true crime podcasts, all of these things. But is that morbid? Is it like kind of grotesque to be into those things? I guess, but at the same time, like I think you have to come to terms with death. You have to accept death, and maybe that's kind of a trial that all of us have throughout our life, is like trying to come to terms with that. Like I don't think anybody really wants to die, but we're all going to, right? So it obviously creates some type of struggle in your mind or something like that. But things like for me personally, things like horror movies and like death metal and things like that like have made me a little bit more comfortable about the idea. And then there's the whole thing from like Grant Morrison about like violent and like grotesque art being like an inoculation, right, for like the evils and bad things of the world that are definitely going to happen to you, that are unavoidable, right? I don't think you do yourself any favors by kind of trying to shield yourself from those things and shield yourself from the fact that you're gonna die. So maybe that's what this kind of goth photography is all about, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think you hit it right on the mark. Like it really is, where are you in your life in that, in relation to how comfortable you are with death. Certainly some of the best content there is in reflection of that, right? We actually just referred to I'm blanking here, but
I'll help you.
There's the show, Dax Shepard's wife, Kristen Bell.
Yeah.
Hey, we got there.
Michael, his brain works on the podcast.
Sometimes.
He's been moving, folks. He's been moving today, Give Michael Costa a break. And now he's thinking about the inevitability of death. So come on, guys. Like...
her and a few other actors you may recognize, they came out with a show. It's called The Good Place. And it is an incredible show. I couldn't recommend it more. Reason I reference it is I consumed it recently, so it's kind of top of mind. But the whole show is death. It's about kind of where you go from there, thinking about the value we have over life, and it being completely based on the fact that it does eventually come to an end. So there's a lot of great lessons that, I can even pull more from that. But ultimately, like, there is a lot of instances where actually consuming content that refers to death can actually help you come to either a new perspective or a way of thinking that maybe helps you become more comfortable with death. So maybe just try taking out, an album or a song or a show or a movie or some form of art that refers to it. And if you are uncomfortable with it, and maybe it'll help you come to terms or at least start you down that path.
For sure, man. And it's fascinating, especially with like artists that we love, to look at their final work as well, right? That's always something that is like very very thought-provoking and very, I don't want to say inspiring, but maybe, intriguing and stuff like that to look into, right? Like the kind of two perspectives that you get listening to it when they're still alive, and then coming to it after once they've passed. Like obviously Mac Miller is a great example, but also David Bowie, like with the whole Black Star album and stuff like that, like listening to it when it came out and then going back and being like, man, what was this guy like really getting at, and learning about his life and stuff like that. It's it's just another level. I guess me and Michael always find an excuse to make this podcast about our appreciation and love of art.
Music always works its way in somehow.
Music will work its way in, but we're photographers, and we try to talk predominantly about photography here, and I think we do a good job of that. But there's also, we're trying to become better creators, better artists, and a big part of that is understanding art a little bit better. And I think kind of in a way, when a sommelier wants to learn all about wine, they go around the world and sample all different types of wine. And then when they taste a wine, they can appreciate it more. I think this is like similar with art, right? So kind of, if you are somebody who considers yourself like, an art enthusiast or an artist, I think it's really important that you don't kind of fence off certain areas, and you don't like go into that graveyard every once in a while, and get your hands dirty.
Yeah, I think my final point to add there is just, around that is, you can't control where a creative genius expresses their thoughts. So like, when it comes to Mac, when it comes to some of these other creatives and musicians or directors or writers or whatever, that's just the medium that they are the most talented in expressing their thoughts and creative vision. So although we are a photography podcast, this is the reason that we often draw those parallels, is because, there are creatives in other industries that, create through different formats that are expressing, a lot of what we're trying to speak to. And, as Jared mentioned, we love to absorb all sorts of artistic mediums. And so it just kind of makes it easier. And I think, you definitely shouldn't shut yourself out from different forms of art, because, again, just there are tons of geniuses all over expressing in different ways.
Yeah, man. You might not like pop music, but there's good pop music. You might not like horror movies, but there's good horror movies that are just transcendently good, that anybody can appreciate if they have the right mindset.
And they'll express that messaging.
Yeah,
right?
Michael doesn't really like punk rock. I sent him some punk rock. He listened to it. I don't really like.
Hey,
pop
that's not
music.
true. Well, is Simple Plan punk rock? Or is that
depends.
Pop punk rock?
It all depends who you ask. If you tell the wrong person that Simple Plan is punk rock, they will put you into a back alley behind Queen Street and pee all over you. So just be careful where you go spreading that Simple Plan propaganda. All right?
All right. Fair.
But even though I got totally derailed.
You somehow got somewhere where someone was peeing on me in a Toronto alley, but
I got really upset, and I don't know, guys. Sometimes it comes out in a weird way. Anyways, don't the point we're making. Don't shy away from forms of art that you don't necessarily understand right away. I've been guilty of this a lot as a 90s kid. It was very popular to like look at a lot of movies and, you know, romantic comedies or even like Titanic and movies like that and be like, oh, that's like a girl's movie and stuff, and you don't try to appreciate it. And I'm trying to address some of those things in my life, you know. Now I'm a big Spice Girls fan, Spice Girls for life. Got my Spice Girls shirt. I'll wear it next time. And you know, just trying to broaden my horizons a little bit. And I think Michael and I are ready to broaden our horizons by getting into the news.
Ooh, let's do it.
Okay, we are back, and Michael's got a great news story for you all. Michael is going to introduce the news story here in a second, but there is something really important that's really been itching at the back of my brain lately, and I think we really just need to air this out, and just a quick discussion here I think is going to settle things nicely. So, Michael, let me ask you something. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
All right, man. So, and you gotta tell me your honest answer. All right? I want honesty here. All right?
Always.
So, in your opinion, what is the best fast food breakfast sandwich?
Recently, due to the change in ownership of Tim Hortons, I'm going to say that it's probably now McDonald's.
Oh, now, really?
I used to love Tim's.
Oh. But
when the Burger King acquired them, things did not go well.
Do you think? Because I think Tim Hortons breakfast has gotten better. They actually started using real eggs instead of that like mushy egg patty stuff, bro.
Well, they added the egg patty because they wanted it to look like McDonald's egg patty. You know what I mean? But other than that, everything else is like, bro. Sometimes I get a breakfast wrap and you just like have a bunch of pita, and at the bottom there's some of what you're supposed to have it filled with. Sometimes I get it and it's like half cold still.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it's just the locations over here, but I've had a lot better experience.
McDonald's does a respectable one, but I don't really love their bacon, man, to be honest. McDonald's, I find their bacon's kind of whack. I do respect the OG nature of it. I respect the real egg, unless you're talking McGriddle, in which case you're getting fluorescent yoga mat for breakfast. But
what? The McGriddle is amazing. You're combining pancakes with a breakfast sandwich. It's amazing.
Which is good in theory, but the execution, it needs.
Oh my god.
It needs some work before I'm going to be impressed. Their hash browns are good. I'd probably have to give it to you. McDonald's hash browns are one of the best. I mean, now Tim Hortons has kind of been trying to go in a bit more of like that style of hash brown direction. Their old hash browns were trash. We can all agree on that. But let's not overlook my boys over at A&W, son. When's the last time you had breakfast at A&W, buddy?
I have never had breakfast there. Yeah.
So Michael Costa, episode 35 of the Photography Brothers. We're going to be live from A&W.
A&W, okay.
We're going to be bringing you guys a report. Is the A&W breakfast sandwich. We'll go like against like, apples versus apples. The bacon on an English muffin. Bacon on an English muffin. Throw down. All right, dude?
Right.
All right.
Okay, I'm down. I'm down.
All right. A&W's hash browns are a little too greasy, I find. But their breakfast sandwich game is on point, I have to say. And another one, Loblaws has a good one too. Just to let you know.
Do they?
They do. Very good. Very good. Put a lot of ketchup on it and go to town. Their bacon is really good. Thick cut. You're going to pay a little more, I'll be honest, probably. Not that much, but a little bit more, but it'll be worth it. But A&W is good to in a pinch.
Well, here's the thing. Sorry, quick cue there. So, so when you buy the breakfast sandwich, you get the bacon bun. You don't get the sausage one.
I usually okay. So here's the thing. The bacon is my highest priority. So I will love to have a bacon one if I'm only gonna have one. Oftentimes, I'm like working on some stupid video editing, or like my job that like pays my bills, and like the business that I have to run, and because like I have to create a big business,
all that stuff.
Gotta pay freaking people to do stuff, and stimulate the economy. You gotta pay mortgages and stuff like that. So usually I'm kind of trying to pay the mortgage, and fund my creative endeavors, and I don't always have time for breakfast on schedule. So a lot of the times, if I end up getting a breakfast sandwich, I'll get 2 breakfast sandwiches. So I'll get a bacon one and a sausage, and probably 1 hash brown, medium coffee maybe, because you need quite a bit of coffee. Put a little bit of milk in there, maybe a little sugar. Usually I drink my coffee black, but if I'm having it with a breakfast sandwich, I'll have a little milk in there, maybe almond milk, maybe a little sugar if I'm feeling frisky.
Ooh, okay. Pour some Baileys in there, yeah.
Pour some Baileys in there. Yeah. So for the 3 people who are still listening, should we get into the news story?
Only on the PHOTOBROS podcast will we have a random, spontaneous conversation about breakfast sandwiches. Yes,
10
I am
minutes,
ready to go.
10 minutes on breakfast sandwiches on the PHOTOBROS. Yeah, you think Barack Obama's podcast, they talked about breakfast sandwich? Talk about America, really? Like, come on, bro. We've all heard it. America this, America that. Let's talk about breakfast sandwiches for a while. Right?
Yeah, man. We could talk breakfast sandwiches. We can talk photography.
Yeah.
Yeah. we really cover it.
We can talk frogs, We talk space.
Oh, yeah.
Everything from frogs to space to breakfast sandwiches. You will get the scoop on Photography Brothers, let me tell you right now.
And also, Somalian photography.
Let's get into it, buddy. Let's talk about photography in Somalia. Let's go. Okay,
so we are going to reference the source here, BBC. You may have heard of them. They've done a few things here and there. The title of the article is Somalia Photography. I want it to be normal for women to take photos, okay? Again, this is BBC, and let's just kind of get into this. But the first little bit here, just to give some context, Somalia often conjures up images of violence and destruction, but a photography exhibition in the capital, Mogadishu, sets out not only, to challenge the perception, but also to recast who is defining those images in the first place, as the BBC's Mary Harper reports. Just to highlight a couple more here to add a bit of context, on a big white wall in a hotel compound hangs a series of calm, intimate portraits by 2 female Somali photographers. It's important that women reclaim the public space, one of the artists, Fardosa Hussein, says. Now, there's a couple of photographers here to highlight. So that one right there, Fardosa Hussein, and of course as well, we have Hannah Meyer. Also, another person to highlight here really quickly before we continue on this topic is the
director. The director of the
yes.
Somali Art Foundation, Sagal Ali. None of this would exist without her. So
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, I think a lot of this article really dives into, of course, the context of the images. So like violence versus highlighting the beauty, but also who's taking the images, because it's just not a common normal thing, and perhaps slightly stigmatized as well for a female to be taking photos, to be a photographer. Jared, what do you think of when you kind of hear this?
Really great story, man. I'm glad that you brought this one for us today. I enjoyed reading it. Definitely got some thoughts going in my head. It's always interesting to read about some other photographers, and despite the fact that like they have like a very very different background from us, right? Obviously, we're
Yeah.
we're not like teenage girls in Somalia. So
Yeah.
pretty different, but it's interesting to have some of the overlap, right? Like not that our life or our position or our experiences or anything like this, but as photographers, you know, we still there are some things that are related, and just that desire to like have a voice and that desire to express yourself and kind of show your surroundings the way that you see them, right? Like there's a lot of photos of Toronto out there, but I like to think that like some of the photos that I take of Toronto like show my personal experience and like what I personally think about Toronto, right? And it was incredibly interesting to see here as well, just hearing Fadasa, is that how you said it? Fardasa Hussein?
I said, yeah, Ferdowsa or Fedosa. I'm not too sure,
Ferdowsa.
but yeah.
She'll write in. She'll tell us how to say her name right. But we've got a really. I checked our analytics earlier, Michael, and we've got a huge following right now in Somalia. So
Nice.
I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll get back to us if we get any of these wrong. But yeah, she's a photographer and a videographer, and it was really interesting to hear her talking about. Again, very different from my experience, but interesting to hear her talk about doing like street photography and kind of shooting around in Somalia, right, in some of the big cities there, and being like harassed by men, and them saying like, oh, you know, this is a man's endeavor, and you have no place doing this, and kind of harassing her in the street and saying she should be embarrassed, like she's embarrassing herself and her family and whatnot by trying to be a photographer. Just kind of remind me of some of the things that I've experienced doing vlogs and stuff like that, right? Like, not that I was harassed by men telling me that it's a man's thing to be doing, but I have had people like make fun of me and you know, kind of laugh at me or even try to beat me up and steal my camera on one occasion. So, you know,
Jeez.
this kind of stuff does happen, and especially, you know, I was able to handle myself as a big old white boy here in Toronto. So, you know, I couldn't even imagine being a young woman kind of facing this discrimination and facing these challenges out in Somalia. But I do think it's really interesting what they're doing here, man. I do think it's very admirable. Obviously, Somalia doesn't have the best reputation, and that's definitely not the fault of these young women, these young artists, right? You hear about, like, well, let me just ask you, bro, what's the first thing you hear about when you hear about Somalia? The first thing you think about when you hear about Somalia?
Probably violence.
Yeah,
So
violence.
violence. You know,
Pirates, Somalian pirates.
Pirates. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, war and drug dealing and all of this type of stuff, right?
Poverty. Yeah.
Poverty. It's just like a dangerous kind of crappy place, and no one would ever want to go there. And what these photographers are doing here, and what Sigal Ali is doing here with the Somali Art Foundation and these exhibits and stuff like that is, you know, giving the people who live there a chance to speak for themselves, right? And a chance to show their perspective of things. And we'll get Sydney to roll through some of the photos here, and we'll just be able to take in some of the art here and really realize like the perspective that these people are coming from, and kind of looking through these. I think like the message of hope and the message of like childhood innocence and stuff like that is really apparent when I look at these, right? That's kind of what I get out of it, is like, you know, there might be this perception abroad that like Somalia sucks, and it's just like kind of, you know, the way people think about like Detroit or whatever, but like 100 times worse. And you know, that's not always the experience of people who live there, and especially of these like young people, you know, like that's their country, they love it, and they want to show the best side of it. So yeah, I think it's really fantastic, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, you talk to. I mean, of course, yeah. There's going to be some hassle. Some people who poke fun or make it difficult at times. You know, when you want to go out and take some photos, but ultimately, yeah, of course, we are fairly privileged to be able to kind of just roam and capture the city, and it's very understandable to know that to think of, you know, the fact that we just want to highlight the beauty of our surroundings, right? You see it everywhere you go. If you look up, you know, photography in any geography, you're going to find images of, you know, people who want to highlight the beauty of their surroundings. And a lot of that is because of the detail and the character that they understand because they're ingrained in it. And were raised amongst it. I mean, you look at some of these photos, I'm honestly I keep staring at through my sister's eyes. It is an unbelievably beautiful image. The color pops through, the use of shadow and the contrast of that. Like it's really stunning. I think like one thing to kind of tie in even our topic in a way is, you know, why say no? You know, like why say, you know, a female can't take photos? Mm-hmm. Why say, you know, no to consuming a certain type of content or having that conversation around a subject matter? There's just nothing, you know, nothing grows in the comfort zone. Nothing grows there. And so I think like we just need to broaden our perspectives. And I think hopefully through creatives like this, you know, kind of taking those steps towards, you know, normalizing things like this, like being a creative in Somalia, is gonna, you know, be the trickle combined with others that take a step up, who maybe absorb their content and put that foot forward. We need more perspectives. We need more valuable content from people who understand the situation, who understand the beauty of a culture in a geography. So we shouldn't be saying no, and I think, you know, we should be encouraging this kind of stuff as much as we can. So even sharing things like this around, if, you know, we're not local to it, and kind of just making sure it's seen, to, you know, living there and being localized and just trying to be a vocal supporter of it rather than, you know, being someone who is maybe lost in their rotten traditional ways.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, yeah, like probably if someone said, "Hey, you want to check out some Somalian photography?" It might be like, "Nah, dude." But when you actually go ahead and do it, you're like, "Wow, this is amazing," and this is like a whole different perspective, a whole like different school of like how to what you're showing when you're taking photos, right? And so interesting to see some other perspectives, because if it's just Michael Costa's perspective and just my perspective, things are gonna get pretty boring, right? I mean, I can play a decent-ish parody of Bruce Springsteen songs, but there's a lot of things I can't do, right? So,
like, remember the names of actors sometimes.
Like, remember the name of Captain Picard, whose name is Patrick Stewart.
Hey,
Patrick Stewart. It's because I've had enough coffee today. I just finished kicking. What's it called? What's it called, Masha? This coffee? Horsepower.
No, it's called Kicking Horse.
No, the bean is Horsepower. The brand is Kicking Horse. She's gonna go check.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. It's just really good coffee.
Like to be.
It's basically the closest thing to like.
454 horsepower.
454 horsepower. There you go. It's basically the closest thing to drinking jet fuel. So it's very effective. If you've ever wondered how your brother Jared is so jittery on the podcast, that's why. But yeah, this is you know, we say the word inspiring on the podcast every once in a while, but this story is definitely an inspiring one, and I would highly recommend going down in the description and checking out the links here. Other things that I would recommend you do is check out the photographer that Michael wants to feature on this week's episode.
Cool, man. So yeah, I mean, I highlighted it last time, but I can definitely do it again because there's so many super creative people. So I think, I mean, why can't we just highlight, one of these folks, right? We're talking about, some specific individuals.
Yeah.
So I think let's highlight Firdousa Hussein and Hannah Meyer. Definitely go check out their work. It is very stunning, great use of color and lighting. So please go check it out, share their work, and let's do our part to kind of highlight some of this stuff because it's beautiful.
Yeah, let's do that. I couldn't find them on Instagram, but I'll do my best to dig up. Maybe they have like a gallery of their work somewhere online other than on this BBC article here, which I will also link. And if I can find that, I'll put more of that stuff down in the description so you guys can check that out. Before we go, Michael, what else do we got to do before we go, man?
What else do we gotta do?
What else do we gotta do
before we go, man? That is the question we always ask, right? Isn't it?
When we need to stall.
In life,
when we need to stall and think about it.
I don't know what that even is. I don't stall.
Well, for starters, we have to thank me.
Sydney.
We gotta thank me, bro. We gotta thank me.
I'm sorry. I wanted to get there. I didn't want to let you down, man. I wanted to go there and get there.
So, anyways, thanks to me for this podcast research and all that I do for the podcast. Thank you to Michael for all of the work that he does, for his inspiring content and his take on the topic, his take on the news, his love of art, and his appreciation for photography. Thank you for all of that, Michael. And yes, of course, as Michael thanked earlier, but we really can't thank enough, our editor, Sydney, for editing the podcast. If you guys think that it's awesome, if it's great editing work, go ahead and subscribe to the Galaxy channel and follow the PHOTOBROS podcast on Spotify. Why should you follow the PHOTOBROS podcast? Why should you subscribe to the Galaxy channel? Well, not only is this a great podcast, not only is it free, not only is it filled to the brim, like literally we pack knowledge, we pack expertise, we pack a true love of art into this podcast. Like, when you're going on a trip and you have your thing, and like you brought everything that you need for the beach, and then you also like bought some other like dumb souvenir crap while you were there, and you're like trying to zip it up, you can't quite get it. That's this podcast.
You need someone to sit on it, You need someone to sit on it to really get that zipper closed.
That's why I have Michael. Michael comes in. He's been eating his Hot Pockets. He's been getting his ice cream sandwich, Mars bar diet going, right? So he comes in. He sits on the briefcase. We zip it up, and we bring it to you guys. And we make a lot of jokes on this podcast, but I do seriously think that if you listen to this podcast, not only will you become a better photographer, a better artist, but I believe that you will become a better person.
110%.
And I would drop the mic, but I only have one mic, and I really like this mic, so... So instead of that, I think we're just going to get out of here. Enjoy the rest of our Sunday. Right, Michael?
Yeah, man. I'm totally not just going to go unbox more stuff and work more after this.
You mean research photography, right?
Yeah. Maybe I'll take some photos of the folded boxes and stuff.
That'd be cool, man. Document the process. It's going to be a lot of unboxing videos. You could probably make like the ultimate unboxing video.
Right? I'll tell you what, I will bring to the next episode some photos of the unboxing and unpacking process.
Okay.
And I'll try my best to utilize the best techniques that photography has to offer. All right, I'll try to get have some shadowing sessions.
Okay.
In the next 20 minutes by some of the greats, do my best.
Sounds good, buddy. So look out for that. Make sure that you come back to the Photography Brothers next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome. One more person who we need to thank before we go, Michael. Who's that?
We need to thank everyone that we talked about today.
Yeah.
For being a large portion of the show, ultimately the show, where we provide perspectives on the work that they create. So thank you to all the creatives that we mentioned. Who else is there, Jared?
Well, obviously we're going to need to thank Bruce Springsteen, Barack Obama, Will Arnett, Patrick Stewart, and everybody who has Michael's dad, Masha,
Yes.
all of our followers, all of our subscribers, all of our supporters. We truly couldn't do it without you guys, and we are just thrilled, just 100% thrilled and excited and invigorated to be doing this podcast for you, and we can't wait to see you all back on the PHOTOBROS next week. Have an awesome week.
See you guys next time.
Okay, I've got the power outro here too. Let me just make this a little wider. Okay. Born in Ontario with a dream of taking good photos, now moved to the big city and we started a podcast about photography now. The Photo Bros. We are the Photo Bros now. There's the Photo Bros. And we're gonna take some good photos now.